Greetings, the Astro 30 here yet again. Got a short one for you. I'm going to take a look inside this Mustool multimeter because yesterday I was doing a voltage measurement on the DC scale and the display jumped up to 3900 odd volt DC, which is what I was measuring. Impossible. There is no way it would have got to that voltage, but it's more than what was coming out of the wall. But yeah, so I did replace the batteries because they were starting to leak. But I will actually take it apart and have a look on the inside. Just take the batteries out. It is kind of an awkward access in here for the batteries. I'm sure there's no hidden screw in the back here. No, there's not. And I only just realised when I was replacing the batteries that the meter does actually have its own stand on it. So I'm kind of dumb, but alright. So I'll place the cover because I don't need it off. Now, just carefully take each of the screws out. There's only 4 of them by the looks of things. So I just want to check for bad joints, solder joints possibly. Especially around the input connector. And this is well out of warranty, so it's fine to take it apart. Plus, I want to actually see what's on the inside. So I thought I'd bring you guys along for it. I mean, it's probably going to be a pretty basic, boring video. All those come out. One did. One has. They're not quite loose enough. Still hanging on by a thread or two. All the screws look to be the same length, so it doesn't matter where they go back in. Stupid thing. Oh man. I'm having real trouble getting this screw to come out. Well, okay, it can stay in there. Let's carefully lift the back off. Didn't really need to take the batteries out, but that's fine. There's some RFI shielding in there. Pretty standard. Now, looking at the surface mount circuit board here, I really cannot see any bad joints anywhere. Even looking through the viewfinder of the camera, especially around the sockets, the COM and voltage inputs is there, so it's these two here. I cannot see any bad joints. Oh, except maybe for that ground. I don't know if I can get a good shot of that. Maybe that ground is a bit suspect, or a little bit of bump in the solder there. It's positive, it doesn't look like it does that. It is kind of awkward to see. So if you actually take the board out, are these molded into the plastic so you can't actually take them out, or do these centers pop out? I would assume the centers pop out. So looking at these voltage capacitors and resistors, they all look like they're soldered correctly. There's no bad joints there, which is probably one of the areas that you would look at. I'd be more looking at the input, because I reckon it had something to do with the leads. Alright, so whilst the soldering iron is cooking in the background, I'll take these 2 screws out, see if I can actually get the board out of the case and get a better inspection of it. 3 screws, there's one up here. There's a little little beeper speaker there. And it doesn't look like there's any other screws holding it in, just these three. There's one. If I can get it out, it'd be nice. Two. I really need to make them high as these screwdrivers, I think. Because, yeah, they're awkward to get out. Fuck's sake. Right, now, it's clipped in 4 positions. So I'll just gently, don't know if I can. Got to be careful of that ribbon cable. That is going to be next to impossible to get out. Okay. I'm just using the battery compartment to give it a bit of leverage. Now, it does look like that will pop out, but there is another clip up here too. Oops, I just busted the battery compartment off the board. Broke the solder, but I can fix that, that's alright. Shouldn't have pulled on that. Alright. Okay. Let's see if I can lift this out without doing too much damage. Okay. It is out. I'll just put this carefully to the side so I don't lose the fingers in the switch. Okay, so the first thing I've got to fix is that joint. Didn't look like it was soldered properly anyway. Just put my finger on the display, I didn't want to do that. Okay, there's nothing on this side. The shunt looks okay. Looks soldered alright. Yeah, that common is a bit suspect. Yeah, it's a bit of a suspect joint. Yeah, so I might have to reflow that. First of all, I'm going to resolder that battery compartment back in. Make sure it is soldered this time. Right, that is soldered now. Back in there nice and solid. I don't know where the positive connection is. Oh, it's over there. Well, actually that's the positive, not the negative. Either or. That joint doesn't look too great either. So I might reflow that joint. If I can get in there. Yeah, okay, so that joint is done as well. I will put it back in its case and I will check the operation of the battery compartment. That one doesn't look too good either, look at it. Okay, so I'll just carefully place that there. Reflow that one. Might as well reflow them all, just to make 100% sure that they're making good electrical contact. This joint's a bit dry now. Up, and it fell out. Of course it did. That's alright, I'll put it back in the case now and I'll solder it in from the other side. Okay, got it back in. Switch still works, that's great. Now, I have to deal with this that fell out. Not like that. That's the voltage input connector anyway. So that's kind of needed. So hopefully I can get the soldering iron in there to push that back in through the hole. There it goes. Alright. Now that I've got that back in, I'm going to just touch up the solder. Just like that. Now, let's put some batteries back in it, and I should probably clean up this now that it's apart, so that there's no battery acid sitting on these spring terminals, which will rot them after time. Alright, now I'll put the batteries back in. So one there, one there, and one there. It might help if I put the screws back in too. So they went one there, I believe. No, I think it was up the top. It was up the top. Should be one right there. Don't have to over tighten them. That one is marked, but it's not marked anywhere else. Just finger tight's enough. I don't need to over torque them, or I'll strip out the plastic and then I'll be sticking super glue down the holes, which I've done before, just to give the screw something to bite into. And I don't really want to do that because it's annoying and messy. Okay, that should do it. System turn on. Okay, so we've got a display. Okay, so it's something to measure. I've got one of the old batteries. I've never even heard this brand, Kirkland. But that's what started to happen there. See all that white schmoo? Yeah, that battery's starting to leak. And this is what can happen to a battery if it's left in a device too long. This wasn't in the multimeter, this was actually sitting in a clock. Look at that. Sitting in a clock for a little bit over a year and went flat and stopped working, and so sat there for the year and then started doing that. The positive is not too bad. It's usually around the negative they start leaking, like this one has. So keep that in mind when you're using tools like multimeters and stuff, to check your batteries regularly and replace them if they're starting to, you know, show signs of this. However, these aren't flat. There's still like 1.4 volts in these batteries. I've already measured it. I don't know if you can see the display very well, but it does say 1.43 volt in there, so I know that the meter is still working as a measuring device. So that means I can put it back together and hope that it never does that thing again. Because that did actually scare me. I thought something was going to explode yesterday, but it didn't, luckily. But yeah, so it's always a good idea to check that your batteries in your tools are still in good condition, and if they've been in there more than a year, and even if they're not flat, replace them anyway. It's just better to be safe than sorry. There's nothing worse than a battery that looks okay 1 week starts leaking the next, because the acid inside the battery, the alkaline, can actually destroy the battery terminals completely to the point where they just become brittle. It's like the acid inside of it tends to eat through the metal. As well as turning it rusty brown, it can make it very brittle to the point where you actually touch it and it just breaks. So that's why it's always a good idea to make sure the batteries are in good condition. So I'll just put this back together now that I've finished. Make sure they're tight enough. They don't have to be over tight, just tight to hold the case together. That's tight. That's tight. That's tight. That's tight. There we go there. So I'm going to end this video here. I hope you enjoyed that. I don't really think it solved much. Well, it could have done. The joints around all these connectors were a little bit iffy, so I've reflowed them. That one fell out. Of course it did, but I got it back in there. But if you enjoyed this video, please remember to give it a big thumbs up below. You can also leave a comment if you wish, and subscribe if you haven't already. You can also follow me on Facebook, and you can become one of my patrons for as little as $1 a month. The links are all in the description as usual. Anyway, this is the Astro 30 saying see ya. Have a great day.